Okay, okay. You win.
You should have seen the look on your face.
Hey, did you know the moon's surface is full of craters? Kind of like Swiss cheese.
Not exactly Swiss cheese. The craters are from meteorite impacts. The moon doesn't have an atmosphere to protect it, so anything that hits it leaves a mark. That's why it's so pockmarked.
Whoa, how do you even know stuff like that?
I read about it. Space is fascinating. Did you know there's a volcano on Mars 3 times taller than Mount Everest? It's called Olympus Mons.
You're brilliant, David.
Not really. I wasn't always like this, you know. School used to be hard for me. Really hard. Wasn't always like this for me.
What do you mean? You're so smart.
No man. I wasn't always. Let me tell you.
Go on.
All right. It started before we moved here. Back then in Lagos, school was a torture. I hated it. My teacher didn't like me.
Really?
Yeah. She'd sigh every time I asked for help. The kids laughed at me too. They called me Slowpoke. I always finished last and got the least mark. My parents were disappointed in me. My dad. Then, out of nowhere, my parents said we were moving to the UK. At first, I thought it might be a fresh start. But not quite so at the beginning. My first day, I almost threw up. I was so nervous. I thought, what if it's worse here? My new school was different. Everything looks so different. My friends are not here. My new school was different. The classrooms looked nicer. The teachers smiled more. But I was still scared. On the first day, I stammered when the teacher asked me to introduce myself. The other kids whispered and giggled. It was just like before. I thought, great. Here we go again. One day in English class, I had to read out loud. My hands were shaking. Michael. The words on the page just didn't make sense to me. They danced around, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't read them. My teacher noticed and asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was fine, but I wasn't. My teacher, Mrs. Green, started paying attention to me. She didn't sigh or roll her eyes like my old teacher. Instead, she asked me questions. She'd say, David, let's try this another way. She wasn't mad when I got things wrong. I didn't know why she cared so much, but I liked it. Then one day, Mrs. Green called me into her office. She said she wanted me to take a test. I thought it was just another way to show how bad I was. But this test wasn't like the others. It was full of puzzles and games. I didn't understand why she kept saying, good job, David, when I was just doing what I could. After the test, Mrs. Green sat me down with my parents. She said, David has dyslexia. I didn't know what that meant, but my parents weren't happy. They looked angry.
There's nothing wrong with our son, he just needs to study harder.
Mrs. Green tried to explain, but they wouldn't listen. I felt like I'd done something wrong. Even though my parents didn't believe it, the school started helping me. They gave me special colored paper to read on, and a tablet that read words out loud to me. It was weird at first, but for the first time, I could actually finish my work. It felt amazing, Michael. I wasn't stupid. I just needed the right supports. The other kids saw me differently too. Some thought I was lucky to get extra help, but a few were mean about it. Mrs. Green told me not to worry about them. She said, you're learning in the way that works for you, David, and that's what matters. Slowly, I started making friends. Real friends. There was a reading competition in our class. I almost didn't enter because I was scared. But Mrs. Green said, you've got this, David. I practiced every day with my tablet. When it was my turn, I read smoothly for the first time ever. Everyone clapped. I didn't win, but I didn't care. I felt like a champion. My parents came to a school meeting one day. Mrs. Green showed them my work from when I started and my work now. My mom's jaw dropped. My dad kept saying, I can't believe it. I was nervous they might still be upset. But when we got home, my dad said,
David, we are proud of you.
I couldn't stop smiling. After that, I started liking school more. I wanted to prove to everyone, and to myself, that I could do it. I joined the math club and even put my hand up in class sometimes. It wasn't easy, but it felt good to try. One day, my parents gave me a surprise. It was a set of books about space, my favorite. I told them, I can't read all of these, but my mom said, yes, you can. I spent hours using my tablet to read them. I felt like I could do anything. Then, the school had an award ceremony. Mrs. Green called my name for Most Improved Student. I froze. Michael. Me? The kid who couldn't even read last year? My parents were there, clapping the loudest. I'll never forget that day. And now, here I am, telling you all this. I used to think I was just bad at school, but I wasn't. I just needed people to believe in me, like Mrs. Green did. I still struggle sometimes, but I'm not scared anymore. You know what's funny? I think I might want to be a teacher someday. Imagine that, Michael, a teacher like Mrs. Green.